So hello from Green Mopeds in Southwest London. So today we're going to show you something a little bit different. This is sort of following up from our Evoque Classic review that we did a while back, and this is called the Macrais Z8X. That's M-A-C-R-A-I-S. We've put it next to a TC Max not because they're comparable, they really aren't. This is a 19 kilowatt bike and this is 5 kilowatts. It's more to give you a sense of perspective rather than anything else. But we'll go around the bike and show you some of the features of it, and hopefully that'll help you make an informed decision. So let's get to it. Okay, quite an interesting little backstory about this bike actually. The person who's now building these bikes was actually a customer, and he bought a TC Max. He was trying to do a long commute on motorways, essentially from Gravesend to Cambridge, and although the TC Max might have had the range on paper, it didn't really do it, especially as a sort of motorway bike. So essentially he decided he was going to build his own, and that's how Macrais came into being. Okay, so as I said, we're not really comparing the bikes for technical capability because they really aren't really comparable, but it is sort of to give you a sense of perspective. If you see what the TC Max is like, this ZX8 is a lot bigger. It also is a lot heavier. So a TC Max is about 120 kilos, 110 kilos, something like that. The Macrais comes in at 182 with its larger battery. So over twice the weight, but a lot more power. Okay, so let's start with the fronts. Would you believe that the front wheels are actually the same size? Both 17-inch, but what you'll notice is what Macrais have done is sort of gone and selected some quite decent components. So we've got dual discs at the front, Brembo, which I'm sure you all know. Okay, so we've got Brembo brakes here, and that is, you know, this bike is capable of doing 85 miles an hour, and it's a lot of weight, and therefore you do actually need something decent to stop it. Quite nice design of the rear wheel, I have to say. So this bike is put together in the UK. I guess one of the bikes you would compare it to is something like an Evoque Classic, which are out of China, although they're trying to dispute that actually, or maybe an 11 kilowatt Zero. Okay, so you are sort of getting into that territory. From the outset, I'd have to say that a Zero isn't in this ballpark for price. I mean, a standard 11 kilowatt DS, now the grant has been removed, is 14,800. That's the starting price, not with tanks or anything like that. Even I think the Type 2 charging cable is £700. So the TC Max is 4,300, so again not really comparable. This one is coming in 3 battery sizes, as we said. There's a 90 amp hour battery, which this is actually that, and then it goes all the way up to 160 amp hour battery. Okay, so you basically are going to choose the sort of spec that you want when you order the bike from us. Okay, so again, just to put that into comparison, if you were looking at, say, the Zero DS's, the 11 kilowatt Zero DS's, they have 14 kilowatt hours of battery. Okay, whereas this has 11.5 kilowatt hours of battery, and Evoque has 10. The TC Max here has 3. So again, not really comparable. But if you were to compare it to an Evoque, it's got a little bit more of battery capacity in it. It's also got prismatic cells like the Evoque. So prismatics are what are called pouch batteries. They're not this sort of 18650 2-volt lithium ion that you sort of put together into a big box. These are actually pouch batteries. Okay, they're rectangular, like sort of small matchboxes. They've just chosen it for greater heat tolerance, is my understanding. As another aside, what Macrais are doing is looking at hydrogen. So whether that will come about will be interesting to see. Okay, so 14 kilowatt hours on a Zero DS, 11 kilowatts for example, 11.5 on this, with the 160 amp hour battery and 10 kilowatt hours on the Evoque Classic that we compared before. Okay, from a power perspective, we've got 19 kilowatts of maximum power, and the Evoque was 20, so that's what, 1 and a bit horsepower more on the Evoque. But what you see here is the motor itself. So interesting about this motor is it's from a company called QS, and QS are known for their motors. That's basically all they do. You'll be maybe surprised to know that this actual motor weighs 24 kilos in its own right. Okay, so this is why when you get to some of the bigger bikes, they move away from hub motors and they make them more centrally mounted, because you've got a 24 kilo weight off the back before you think about putting a passenger on it. Okay, and that is why often they move. Plus the fact that, as you'll see here, and as we showed you on the Evoque, to actually fit the motor in the wheel, because of the width of it, you do actually need quite a wide wheel, okay, at the back, just to sort of give you enough space to actually deal with the motor that you're putting in it. So these are 200 width tyres at the back, okay, so pretty wide, not as wide as the Evoque, that was 225. Okay, so yeah, 8 kilowatt nominal and 19 kilowatts max. 19 kilowatts is basically about 25 horsepower, 24, 25 horsepower. Again, not really comparable to a petrol bike, because it is using probably 80 to 90% of that 25 horsepower, whereas petrol is wasting 80 odd percent of the horsepower that it has available. Okay, so in terms of speed, as we mentioned, so just as an aside, a TC Max is 60 miles an hour. This is 85 miles an hour. The Zero 11 kilowatts at 85 miles an hour. The Evoque Classic is 85 miles an hour. So not a lot to compare there, or difference rather. The charging time on this bike is quoted as being 5 hours. Okay, and it does have a charging port underneath here. Okay, so you've got your this is public charging, but it comes with a 13 amp plug on the end of the cable. Okay, so as in it's type 2 charging on the bike, but at the other end is 13 amps. So if you want to do public charging, you have to get another cable. Okay, but be that as it may, it's still 5 hour charging time. Okay, just as another comparison, a DS would give you about I think a 9 hour charging time. Okay, as you can see, it's matte black. That is the only color currently available. Okay, in the future they will probably be looking at other colors. So the way this is going to work is that this is essentially a demo bike, and when you order them, you'll be able to pick and choose like the battery capacity, so 90, 120 or 160 amp hour charge. Some of these components will probably be changed, I've been led to believe. Okay, so for example, I think there's going to be a new dashboard. Okay, the dashboard, as you can see, is pretty simply laid out. You've got your indicators. At the moment, you've got indicators on both sides of the handlebars, but this is going to change. And then you've got obviously throttle, kill switch, and lights and horn, etc., etc. Mirrors, pretty cool looking mirrors, I have to say. No storage, I guess, is one thing. So you're probably back into something like a rucksack. Okay. Yeah, so black is the only choice right now. Okay. The battery is coming with a 3-year warranty. Okay, but it's not on the grant. And one of the main things to have the grant is to not only get the £500 back, but because it enforces a 3-year warranty. But Macrais are doing that anyway. So the fact that it's not on the grant doesn't really make much difference, I guess, other than the price. But as you'll see, the price is fairly competitive anyway, certainly compared to the others. Okay, so 3-year warranty on the battery, which is the main thing to consider. QS Motors, if you have wandered around ECMA, you will see that QS Motors are you know, a very reputable company. This is an IP54 rated motor, so that basically means no pressure washing, which is what you'd say anyway about a lot of these bikes. Okay, so in terms of range, if you had a TC Max, you'll be talking about 50-mile range. Obviously with something like a Zero, you are talking about, well, you can get extended tanks and everything like that. You're talking about 160-mile range, so it probably, excuse me, does win out on range. But this one and the Evoque are both claiming about 120-mile range. That's with the 160 amp hour battery. Okay, so as I said, the reason to have such a big battery in it was to solve an actual problem of going fast for a long amount of time. Okay, so the 160 amp hour battery version is 8295. The 90 amp hour battery is 7295. Okay, so if you think about that, the CR6 Pro is over 6, and maybe we should have put it next to one of those as a comparison, but that is also a manual bike, or has gears rather than modes. Okay, so 7295 for the 90 amp hour and 8295 for the 160 amp hour. But again, if you compare that to a Zero, you're looking at least 14,800. Okay, so we've always tried to look for bikes that fill gaps, and we feel that this is a bike that will fill a gap between something like a TC Max and a CR6 and something like a Zero, and we think this will be one of those bikes. Okay, all right, so we will be doing a test ride on it, as you would expect, and putting it through its paces. If you have any questions about it, then please feel free to contact us at hello@green-mopeds.com, and hopefully that will help you in your research. So thanks very much.